It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. The wide receiver market continues to churn in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills and wide receiver Stephon Diggs have agreed to a 4-year, $104 million extension, according to a report by Adam Schefter. $70 million of it guaranteed money. The Nashville Sound started the 2022 season with a walk-off winner on opening day Tuesday at First Horizon Park, going again tonight against the Durham Bulls. First pitch is at 6:35. Bit of college football news. Eddie George and Tennessee State are headed to South Bend to take on Notre Dame in the 2023 football season. It'll be the first ever game scheduled by the Notre Dame football program against an HBCU. Also around college football, Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby said Tuesday he is stepping down from his role later this year. Bowlesby has ran the Big 12 Conference since 2012 as the conference undergoes big changes. Texas and Oklahoma set to join the SEC in the coming years. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Happy hump day to you.
Oh, it is hump day.
It is. I actually know what day it is this week. Really, I'm kind of proud of myself about that. It's been like 2 out of the last 4 weeks. I had no idea what day it was. We signed off one Tuesday, and I said, can't wait to see you on Thursday, tomorrow.
Well, that's what happens when you're having so much fun, man. You know, hanging out with me and Lucas.
Oh, you guys are all kinds of fun.
That's when it's perfect, man. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Are you guys excited about the Masters Golf Tournament? Absolutely.
I could say that I'm excited to see if Tiger Woods finishes, can finish, makes the cut, or even in the hunt. I think those four. That's the only thing I'm excited about. I firmly believe that I don't think he's gonna make the cut. I have no idea what's gonna happen. I just think fatigue is gonna set in especially when you start walking those hills, as I've said before. I just think it's gonna be tough. I mean, we know he's great, but reason why I say this. I am the injury guru.
Right.
I watched him today walk some parts of the course, and he was limping already. I don't know if he was before. It didn't look like it to me as much yesterday, but today I saw it.
Okay.
And I was like, dang, we haven't even started this thing, really. I mean, so I just feel like fatigue. I noticed, he's got trainers and everything else is going to try to help him recover, everything else. But it will be I think this will be his biggest feat yet. If he even makes the cut in this one, I'll be like, man, this guy's a bad man. We already know he is. But now after all these things, 3 or 4 back surgeries, knee surgeries, and now the leg that could have been amputated, and then now you play with rods in your leg, I don't care what sport it is, it's pretty impressive. But I wouldn't be surprised as time goes on, he gets better and plays in other tournaments. But this first one, I don't know. And it's hard to bet against him too, man. I mean, this guy's, he's a special player, even with all those things. So I'm assuming he doesn't, but for golf's sake, I'm sure they hope he makes the cut.
There's really no other golf tournament that I think at some point this weekend I have to sit down and watch some of this besides the Masters. And I always watch the end, no matter who's contending, just because.
Yep, that last day for sure.
That's one of those things that changes your life. I mean, if you win any golf tournament, like our guy Brant Snedeker, he's won several tournaments. He said this unbelievable career, makes a great living, endorses a bunch of stuff. And that's awesome. But you win the Masters, that's like winning a Grammy or an Academy Award. It's
like winning the Super Bowl if you're a quarterback or head coach. Right?
Super Bowl champion the rest of your life, no matter what happens. If you play 1 year and you win the Super Bowl on your team, you're always Super Bowl champion,
And that always used to perturb me.
I know.
Year. Yeah, you just try to poke me right there. Yeah, 1 year, they were a role player. I got him Super Bowl.
I have a friend who was on the Ravens Super Bowl championship team. He played in 5 games that year, was inactive for all the rest. That rascal's got a great big ring. Now, he doesn't make a big deal about it because I think he understands the lay of the land, but he's Super Bowl champion.
I had to go look up a guy. He was up there flashing his Ravens ring. And I'm looking at him like, I don't remember you. No, by the way, he said he played wide receiver. So I'm like, wait a minute.
I didn't even cover you.
Right. Well, how do I not? He was like, well, I got injured, halfway through the season, so I didn't finish. But he got that ring on flexing it when we was in the at the combine in the lounge, the Legends Lounge. So I was
The Legends Lounge.
I remember that Billy Davis, wide receiver for the Ravens.
Billy White Shoes Davis.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was. I was like, are you confused? Was that with another team? And by the way, he said he had two. I didn't even want to hear where else he would play. After that, I was just like,
He has two.
yeah.
And you know me about knowing football. I don't know who that guy is.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to do immediately one of those commercials and just tackle him.
Okay, I got to do this to you
I was
now,
like,
Billy
oh
Davis.
man, yeah. I was like, oh man, we I don't want to, leave here the Lucas Oil in cups. I looked at him and said, what?
In cuffs.
No, yeah. Billy, you looking him up?
Yes.
Yeah, well, he played for a lot of teams, didn't he, or something like that?
This dude.
I didn't want to look him up or nothing.
This dude went to University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and he was just laughing. He had this smirk on his face, like, "Yeah, dude,
One for each hand.
yeah,
Yeah, man.
Oh, it was just like, man, I wanted to go in the bench press room and start doing some benching.
He played 95 to 98 with the Cowboys. Got him a ring.
Got him a Cowboys.
99, 2000 with the Ravens. Got him a ring. He'd never played again. He was on the Bears practice squad or off season and the Raiders. It just showed that he was on the team but wasn't on the team. He had 93 games. He caught 51 balls
In his career.
Yeah, 907 yards. He had 3 touchdowns.
Wow. He had this laugh and smirk on his face.
Can you imagine that, dude?
Where I almost wanted to just like, dude, are you messing with me?
Was he wearing one of them in the Legends Lounge?
Both of them.
He was wearing both.
That's what I was like. Oh, let me check out where you got your Super Bowl ring. Then he said, "Yeah, it was good. Yeah, we beat y'all."
Oh, no.
He said like this one right here. Man, I wanted to just yank that thing up him and throw it down to the field. No, I was just kidding. But I was just like, oh my gosh, man, that's all I ever wanted. I really did, man. And that Raven one just, it just hurts.
You always say this, though, and I believe you, that if they won the Super Bowl now, you would feel like you finally won it. I know it wouldn't quite be the same, but you've always told me how excited you would be if the Titans won it now.
I would be extremely excited, especially, still working for Titans Radio. So I feel like I'm still part of the organization to a certain extent.
I would think you and me and Dice get fitted for a ring at that point, right? Since we're Titans Radio.
Yeah. Probably.
Can I get in on that?
But yeah, you do the scoreboards.
They would ask us for a cost, I'm sure.
Well, we would get the one that had the cubic zirconiums in it. Like they would get diamonds, we would get the version of it.
Oh, okay.
I'd take that.
Well, yeah. I get a paper stopper or something. It doesn't matter, man. In glass or something. I don't know. I just want one. That I was a part of the call, the broadcast, or anything of that nature. Knowing I can't be on the field. So yeah, that was probably my biggest dream. That man, we came up short.
Boy, it's a heck of a game, though. I wish you hadn't gotten knocked out.
Oh, yeah. Well, me either. But
because that certainly could have stemmed the tide of that thing. But you guys win that game. We've made this discussion before. I think how everybody on the Titans of that era has looked at us differently. They all looked at it differently. All of you, McNair and Eddie and you and everybody else.
It's funny, and
it
everybody
be
goes
that
right
way.
to the Rams loss. That didn't really bother me as much as people would think. It's the Ravens.
Yeah.
It was because of the arrogance and the bravado that they, especially their defense, and how they were ranked number one in some categories we were. And then every time somebody talks about them, there's no mention that the Titans were an elite defense as well. We were number one in a lot of categories. So it's just like, so just losing to them, that one stung because I wanted to just bust their chops. There's still a part of me. I get being sportsmanship for Eddie going in that locker room after the game, shaking a hand. I'm like, man, they were partying on our field. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I check that guy tomorrow. Yeah, on a text line.
Could you even text anybody at that point in life?
Yeah, I think you could in 2001.
Okay. You sent a text in.
I would have gave him a call.
I still had a beeper.
It would have maybe beepers were over in '97, man. So yeah, beepers were over right when we moved the team here.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was in real estate.
I remember that was like, oh man, I got a beeper. When I first got
just so someone could say, "Call me."
Yeah,
right. That's all. It was basically
this number.
That was it.
Man, who was that?
Yeah, I got to call this number back.
Yeah, it may be a potential client.
I got
No,
quiet.
I'm talking about
Oh, no,
real
it was,
estate.
man.
Right,
you get excited to see that. The doctors and real estate agents had beepers in those days.
Yeah, but I'm sure A.J. Brown got a beeper going on, man, because he putting stuff out there on Instagram. I don't even know what to take from some of his stuff he's saying, tweeting out, or whatever he's putting out there. But, man, the number just keeps rising.
It does. We said that was going to happen. So this morning's number, early this morning, Stephon Diggs, 4 years, $104 million.
Ooh, when I saw that, I thought, like, what? When did they go? I mean, when was that released? Like 6 a.m. or something?
Yeah, early this morning.
Like, man, but they was up all night. I would have been like, man, I'm going to sleep, man. I wake up about 9, man. Then you can post it up. We get it all signed. Man, Stephon Diggs, man. That's the question when I start seeing all these players, wide receivers. Where is A.J. Brown as far as his ability? Where is his ranking?
Yeah.
Lucas. Like, where do you think he ranks? Is he in the top 5? Because I think I can name a top 5, and I don't think he's in it. But a lot of people would automatically hear with the Titans and say, oh, he's top 5, fans of the Titans. And I go, I don't know.
I'm with you on that.
I think he's top 10, and I think that'll be close. But I can name 5: Jefferson, Diggs, Devontae Adams,
And maybe that's
Tyreek Hill.
Product of the offense, too.
But it doesn't matter. They don't care.
Who's the guy from the Bengals?
It doesn't matter.
Chase.
Who?
The guy from the Bengals.
Jamar Chase.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well,
Right, see?
great
We
start to
start
his
going
career.
down the line. Everybody, and I know he's younger, so you could always talk about that. He's not younger than Jamar Chase, but he's probably in the top 10. And that's still elite, but how far do you go? That's my whole point when I was, talking about this, a couple days ago, is 25 mil? Ooh, no, that's too high. And not to say he won't get it, but I'm like, Stephon Diggs averages like 26 million?
He's 26.
Go look up his resume. Stephon Diggs is a bad man. I mean, this guy is over 1,200 yards every year and doesn't hardly ever miss. So, this is going to be interesting to go around because I think his agent is a tough negotiator. He's pushing the envelope. I think that's where all this stuff really is coming from. So this is going to be interesting. I think the ceiling is 22.5 as Joe Corey, and you've been kind of mentioning yourself. But I would probably be around that 20. I keep sticking at that 20.
Would you guarantee him a little bit more?
I would
GM
probably
Blaine
give him
Bishop?
some concessions, yes.
Yeah?
Because I would do it because he's younger. But look, and then you can get another bite at the apple, whether it's with us or not. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be 25 this season.
Because then that's when you hang over the injuries. And I get it. We fall in love with the fans, but at the end of the day, this is always about business and economics and numbers and what you want to allot for a position. That's why I always say if they want a player, they can keep a player. Because if they want to, they'll find a way. So, would I want to keep him? But, man, if his agent's going to go way up here in the stratosphere and talking about 26 million, Stephon Diggs, and he's younger, like, I don't know about that one. Well, he's only probably, a couple years younger. Well, maybe a little bit more than that. Was he about 3 years younger? But Stephon Diggs, man.
He's probably 3 years younger than Diggs. Yeah.
But these guys gotta be kind of careful about the wide receiver, this number. And I bet you one of the conversations at the owners' meeting was we're letting this wide receiver position get way out of whack here as far as pay and get into the 30 million range too soon. Not to say it's not going to happen and for the elite of the elite, but then where does that put everybody else? It's just like when Tom Brady, was taking, pay cuts and was, killing the quarterback market. Other quarterbacks were hot at him, and I would have been too.
Sure.
Like, if you're the best, man, you can't be taking pay cuts. I mean, you set the bar. So then it's crazy. Kirk Cousins makes more than Tom Brady.
Yeah, it has for years.
Is Kirk Cousins even in the top 15? So it's just granted they're in different situations,
right?
With the family and how much she makes and everything else. And he wants to win Super Bowls, but At some point, he would have been out of New England a long time ago if he would have been the normal player saying, hey, man, I should be the highest paid player. He would have been out of New England years ago.
Because New England would have shipped him off, right?
Right.
Sure.
Yep.
Like they did everybody.
Yep.
Once everybody got too expensive, bye. Brady just never let himself get too expensive.
Yeah.
Everybody else who did, bye.
Yeah, he just got tired of Bill.
Yeah, I think he did.
I'm telling you, he
100%
did.
you're right.
I know. I've been on this the whole entire time.
100%.
That's what was the end.
I got to go enough.
He said
Because he's been a completely different dude in Tampa, laughing and joking and breaking into houses looking for Byron Leftwich.
free. He's free.
He is.
Unleashed.
Dude, and now he's even freer because they got rid of the coach. Now Bruce Arians retired.
Yeah, I think
He came back, and
this is
Bruce
not
Arians
conspiracy.
disappeared.
I really believe he gave wink, wink, nod, nod to the ownership, man.
Oh, he went to England and see the soccer
and they had
match.
a conversation
Yes.
about what was going on. And I've said all along, you can go back and listen, that I think Tom Brady was upset about how he handled the Antonio Brown situation.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about what led up, not the Antonio Brown's actions on the field.
Right.
Why he got to that point is because he wouldn't let him use the organization and Arians, his little guru guy, on injuries.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let him touch him and was like, no, leave him alone. Then once you get on the bad side of Antonio Brown, he felt like they lied to him and said nothing was wrong with his ankle when it actually is with some bone spurs. So, and that's why he's like, I'm not going to get it taken out until I get signed. Because, walking around and just doing normal stuff, it's not bothering him. But at some point in time, the bone spurs started affecting you as a player.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've had them, and I've had them removed out of my ankle.
Ugh. All right, we got to take a break to find those bone spurs.
Yeah, they rolling out there with the rain down the gutter.
They're rolling in the deep. All right, we're going to find those bone spurs. We're going to find the greatest guest, Mike Detillier. If you've heard him, you know. If you've never heard him, you're about to know. The draft expert for Titans Radio set to join us next. If you got a player you want to know about, tweet us at Blaine and Mickey, or you can even jump in. If you got a player you want to ask Detillier about, Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, 615-737-1045. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Speaking of 104.5 The Zone, that is this radio station, and we are having a Spring Golf Classic coming up, presented by Ferguson HVAC. That's Monday, April 25th, at one of Middle Tennessee's most prestigious private courses, Old Natchez Country Club. Tickets are extremely limited, so don't miss out on this. 1045thezone.com is where you go to purchase the remaining teams available for the first time ever at the Golf Classic. You can play on a team of special guests like Titans legend Keith Bullock or receiver Nick Westbrook-Akina and more, and all the proceeds from the ticket sales go to their charity of choice. Again, find out more at 1045thezone.com. 1045 The Zone has always had only one draft insider, and it is the expert. It is Mike Detillier, who joins us now. Mike, great to hear from you, buddy.
My pleasure. Great to be with you guys.
The fantastic M&D draft report, which is, as my son calls it, Daddy, where's your draft Bible? Because he's heard me call it that before. And also a personality for WWL Radio. Mike, 100 years of WWL Radio. So congrats on a century of success to you and your radio brethren and sisters there.
Yeah, it's not 100 years old for me, but it is 100 years old.
Yeah, we know you're 100.
Sometimes my knees feel that 100 years old, but yeah, it's a great ride it's the third oldest radio station in America. And, guys, we just get it from all over the country. People call in from, now, that you can download the apps and, everything over the internet. It's a different world, but people of a certain age will call in. Man, I'm in Montana. I used to live in Louisiana or in East Texas. I used to always listen to WWL, and I used to listen to jazz. Because for me, my first memories of WWL is LSU football, jazz music. Because they used to play a lot of jazz music on WWL in the 60s, and growing up in that time frame, hearing it on WWL, and certainly LSU football. And I got told a story. I didn't really know that at one time LSU and WWL, they were hooked with football, but not with basketball. And the guy that ran WWL at that time, John Pila, got approached and said, "Are you going to put on LSU basketball? They got a guy there that's pretty doggone good." And he's like, "Well, who is he?" He says, "Pete Maravich." He said, so he said, "Man, he didn't know anything." So John, who's passed away, he went to WWL television anchor Hap Glaude. He said, "Hap, is Pete Maravich good?" He said, "Oh, yeah, he's really good." And so all of a sudden, LSU basketball got put on WWL radio. And so from Pete's they had a freshman team, so you couldn't hear it back then. And his sophomore season was not on WWL, but his junior and his senior season were. So, for a lot of people across the country, man, I'll listen to LSU basketball, Pete Maravich. I'll listen to LSU football, Tiger Stadium. That's when games started at 8 o'clock at night, man. And I got that flamethrower. Man, when that darkness goes down, man, it flames out there pretty good. So, yeah, it was great reliving a lot of memories and recall the first game Saints ever played. Listen to it on the radio at my home.
Dang, that's some good stuff. And I would recommend that anybody who even thinks they like basketball, if you're young and don't know about Pistol Pete Maravich, the leading scorer in college basketball history by over 400 points, played only 3 years because freshmen weren't eligible, and no three-pointers at that time.
No three-point line.
If people don't know that, he averaged 44 points a game in college, 44 points in his career.
I went to one of his camps. I was a teenager, went to one of his camps, and you were in amazement. But you saw Pete, it was like a door. You saw him coming in and you saw him leaving. He was there for the first hour of the first day, and he was like at the end. He came in and press ran. His dad press ran the camp.
Yeah.
But he would run fast break with you, basketball the final day. It was something.
Boy, that's something to tell. My goodness, Mike, absolutely. What a great memory. All right, you and me are talking basketball. Mike Detillier, our guest. I will let Blaine start to ask you about NFL draft prospects, and then we have some listeners who've called in and sent others. We'll get to those too. Mike Detillier, our guest.
Well, Mike, I want to start off first. Give us your top 3 quarterbacks, and then who do you think will be off the board first? Not necessarily your number one guy is always the first guy off the board, though.
Well, it's Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, 1, 2, 3, and Desmond Ritter's 4. But I think both, because there's a need. They don't rate that high, but because of need and lack of, quality talent at the most important position on the field, I think both. When you think about it, it's hard to believe that guys that are teens, early 20s ratings would be in the top 10. But when you look at it, I think you'll see both of them go in top 10 selections. And, I really believe that. I think Pickett and Willis will go in the top 10, and I think Corral and Ritter will go late first, early second.
Well, we had a visitor today, and not me, but the Titans did, from a tight end from San Diego State, Daniel Bellinger, I think is his name. Well, what do you think about him, and where do you think or see him going in this draft? What kind of area of range in the draft?
Yeah, I saw Daniel play a lot of football. I'm up late at night, I guess, when I shouldn't be, but whatever. He's a really good athlete, tremendous athlete. He's a bit mechanical as a route runner, and I'd like to see him, sort of become a little bit more confident in running those routes. He's a getting away blocker. He ain't drilling people at the point of attack, but he catches the ball clean out front with his hands. And you can see, he's got really good eye-hand coordination, and he's got a knack for finding that open space downfield. I think he's a middle-round pick. You're probably looking late third, early to mid-fourth round for Daniel. Really good prospect, though, and a great athlete. Now, can he switch it from great athlete to great football player? Now, that's a lot easier said than done. I've seen a lot of great athletes that can't be great football players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. Well, naturally, today was LSU's Pro Day. I guess you could talk about some of the guys that stood out. Naturally, we want to start with Stingley.
Well, if I had to put a Mount Rushmore of best athletes football player I've ever seen at LSU in 35 years, he'd be on it.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, he's one of the top three. He's one of the top 3 football athletes I've ever seen. And I've never seen a cornerback as a freshman play like Stingley did. I mean, he was off the charts good. And when you talk to opposing teams and coaches, their deal is, man, I'm not going after Stingley, and you're talking about a freshman, they weren't throwing the ball at him. They did maybe the first game, but that was it. Man, I ain't going that way. Forget about that. Then you had a series of injuries, and I have no doubt it affected his play. And come on, buddy, you've been through this before. You're trying to play, and you're not close to being 100% or even 80%, and you got a foot injury, which means you can't run like you used to. You can't plant and make a tackle as well as you used to. And people, oh, man, you dogging it. It ain't nothing about dogging it. It's about you tried to play through that injury, and you just couldn't. And some of this convoluted stuff that they were doing the last 2 years, defensive coaching-wise, I shake my head. I don't know what was going on at times there. But, he ran real well today. He's back from the Liz Frank injury. I don't know that he's 100%, but he's top 90. I mean, he's in that 88 to 90% range. He's an elite athlete. But you got to think about, in this draft class, he'd be one of the top 3 players. If you're just grading on talent and football skills. But you also have to consider availability. And him missing a big chunk of his sophomore and junior seasons, do you want to spend an early pick on Stingley? Somebody will. He'll still be a top 10 or 12 pick in this draft class. He erased at least some of the concerns about his health today. But my question mark is always going to be long-term. He couldn't hold up for 12 games. Can he hold up for 17 in the NFL?
I want to stick with
think he's going to be a top 10 or 12 pick. Yeah, and he's an athlete, and he gets it. He's a really smart young man not only is he athletically gifted, but he knows this game at a certain level. And I'm old enough that I remember his grandfather, and how tragically he got paralyzed out on the football field. His dad was a really good football player also. And so there's some genetics there. They're strong, but, man, I've never seen a freshman hit LSU like what Stingley did. And to talk to the coaches, and I would talk to Coach O a lot about it. He said, Mike, it's almost like he's disguised as a 25-year-old, 4-year veteran in the NFL playing here. He's 18 years old. It was unbelievable that national championship year, how good he was.
Well, Mike Detillier, we're going to go to some of the callers who are interested in some different players across the country.
Yes, sir. Mike, we got Gil calling in all the way from California. So let's connect California to Louisiana here. Gil, welcome in. Say hello to Mike Detillier.
Hey, Mike, how's it going, brother?
How you doing, Gil, man? Good hearing from you.
I'm doing all right. Well, my question was, I came to grips that the Titans are probably going to select the offensive lineman with the first pick, so we don't pick in the second round. We go in the third round. And I was just wondering about Tyquan Thornton. I see the speed, and I like what he could, we need somebody who could take the top off the defense. And I don't know about a star receiver. I just think we need somebody who could take the top off, and late in the draft, I think he might be there. And I just wanted to know, how come I don't hear too much about him? Does it show on the field his speed, or what's up with the guy?
Tyquan's a great athlete. Man, he can fly. But his production has not been super. And he was in an offense that wanted to throw the ball downfield. They wanted to get it downfield to him. What I see with him is he needs some work as a route runner. And you can be fast, but all of a sudden you put them pads and a helmet on, you're not quite as fast anymore. And he's not confident at times running his routes. And I just think that that's a big part of his game he has not beaten yet. He has not been able to do it. I agree with you. Somebody's going to overpick him, and most likely in that third to fourth round range, because he is a workout warrior, great athlete. But his production was not super at Baylor. And, okay, am I trying to put a track team on the field? Or am I trying to put the best football players I can on the field? Man, I want the football player. Now, if he's fast, I'll take that too. But he's got some work to be done. I think it'll take a very patient wide receiver coach to work with him. But what I see, he doesn't have great confidence as a route runner. He's not confident, and he slows down almost to a stop every time he makes a cut or a break.
Mike Detillier, our guest. Got a message here from our friend Gator Mike. Of course, he had to ask about a Florida player. He asked about Damian Pierce.
Man, I like Damian. I didn't think they used him enough. He's a big pounder back. What I like with him is he sees the opening real quick. He's got quick feet. He's not super fast, but he's real quick to hit the hole. He's decisive, and he makes one cut, and he's up the field. And he's a load to bring down one-on-one, and catches the ball a little bit better than people give him credit for. He's really worked at that, catching the football coming out of the backfield. Running backs are devaluated. We see it all the time. They just devalued. And so he's going to probably last into the latter part of round 3. But he is a good number 2 back for a team. And I like him. Short yardage, red zone. And he's become a much better receiver coming out the backfield. And he showcased his skills at the Senior Bowl. I thought he really helped himself out a lot in that weekend in Mobile.
James asked Blaine and Mickey on Twitter, what about Jalen Weidermeyer?
Jalen, before the season, was running 1A, 1B at tight end. But, man, he's gotten heavy. And he just does not separate well downfield. He's more, to me, of a middle, later round pick. He's a getting away. For a big man, he's more of a getting away blocker. He's not a thumper up front. He does catch the ball real well. He's got really smooth hands, big hands, and he can catch the ball well. But what I've seen with him, man, he's gotten way too heavy. and he's got to lose some weight and get himself better condition. He's a good football player, but right now I think the big question mark is when you watched him this year, how many big plays did he make? He didn't make a ton of them for Texas A&M. In an offense with a lot of young receivers, and you were counting on him to be that guy.
Yeah.
He didn't make a ton of big plays downfield like I thought he would coming into the season. So I think you're probably looking at a middle to later round pick in Jalen, who was a really highly rated guy coming into the 2021 season.
All right, we had a caller who asked about the safety from Middle Tennessee, Reed Blankenship, who's played a heck of a lot of football down there for Rick Stockstill.
I think he'll get drafted a lot higher than people give him credit for. He's smart. He's instinctive. He knows he doesn't take a lot of false steps to the ball. He comes up that seam fast in run support, and he's good in coverage. So I think you're probably looking at, late 4th, early 5th round pick. Some people have him as a free agent. I think he's going to go higher than that. Really think he will. And he's a guy a lot of people don't talk about. You know why? Because if I tell you, you're going to tell somebody else.
I'm with you on that, Mike.
Mike Detillier with us on Blaine Mickey.
Well, I'm going to ask you about a guy. He's on a smaller side at corner at Houston, the Cougars. His name, I always watch him, and I think he's a really good. Damian, or is that Williams is his last name, I think? Yeah, what do you think about him? He's got a shot.
Yeah, he's small. He's awfully small. He's a great return man, though.
Yep.
Oh, goodness. I watched him a couple of times in Houston. They're still trying to catch him.
Yeah, I watched him against Cincinnati going against that tall wide receiver they had, and he kind of held his own pretty much.
Yeah, and he's feisty. Man, he fights you.
Tough.
But you understand he's 5'7", okay, and a little change. So he's at a mismatch, downfield with a bigger receiver. And the league now is full of really tall wideouts. Yep. And so you have that disadvantage. But the one thing he can help me immediately, special teams. And you'll have punters after the first time they kick to him, they won't be kicking to him again. They'll be kicking that sucker out of bounds. They don't want him to touch it. He is so quick. And I think it gets overvalued, the speed part. Man, give me somebody who's super quick. And Blaine, you've been around, man. A guy who's really quick, he gives you a lot more trouble than a guy who's fast.
Yeah.
And not quick. That's a difference.
Very true.
Man, that quick guy, he drives you nuts because, man, he can change directions so quickly. With a fast guy, a lot of times he's almost got to slow down and almost stop before he changes direction. That quick guy, man, he can do it, and then you left flat-footed almost like you in cement.
No doubt about it. I guess give me the evaluation on these two corners, one from Auburn, McCreary, and the other one from Clemson, Goodrich.
McCreary is, man, depends on when you watch him because I'm impressed with him. And he would be one of my top 32 players.
Oh. Now,
does he go in round one, because I really only have 23 first-round picks. But second round picks, I probably got 35 to 40. So he's in that number that he could fall late in round one or early into round two. He's a physical player. He will come up and make a play and run support. But he is really good in man coverage, and he's physical with a receiver. And he's well built for a corner. He can do that sort of thing. So I think he's in that range of late first into the early part of round two. With Goodrich, there's some off-the-field issues there that is going to drop down his draft status. He's a really good athlete, quick feet. He can turn and run with receivers. And what I like about him is he's got that ability to plant and drive real hard to the football. And that's a gift. A lot of guys can't do it as well as he can, but I do think there's some issues there and sometimes maybe motivation that'll drop him in the draft.
We have two receivers, too, here. Javonte Payton from Tennessee. I think he was a Mississippi State transfer, as well as Christian Watson. That was a kid I liked, too. I liked him a lot. But what do you think about these guys? Yeah.
Christian, I watched North Dakota State play, and, he's a huge man. He's almost 6'4", he's 200 pounds, a former high jumper, long jumper, track athlete. he has got great speed. Now, he needs some work as a route runner in his ability to come out of those cuts and breaks a little smoother than. But I think you can coach that. That I think you can get better at. What I like too about him is he does something downfield that impresses me. He can block. He blocks downfield for his running backs or his quarterback if they take off with it, and that jumps out at me. I think he's an early second-round pick. He's a good-looking athlete, and he would certainly win the wide receiver Olympics. He'd be in that number because he is really talented athletically. But you can see he needs a little bit of work, and that right off the bat, he's not going to make a huge impact for your football team. But he reminds me of those big, tall receivers that the Packers are noted for having. Those guys that can really get up in the air and make a big play, but got great size, tremendous foot speed. But he's a little bit of a developmental player as a route runner. So I think that'll probably drop him out of round 1. But, man, he won't have to wait too long on day 2 to hear his name called.
Before we let you go, just give us 2 names, and then we'll let you go. Overrated player, any position, underrated player, one of each.
Man, who I really like is Kenyon Green from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
You watch him play.
Guard, right?
He doesn't get beat by anybody. He's kicking everybody's ass on every play. And, man, I saw him a couple years ago when LSU was beating the stew out of them. And he never gave up. Never. He kept fighting and fighting throughout the game, and the game was way, 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 way out of reach at that particular point in time. So he would be, for me, an underrated player. Now, I think he'll go in round 1. That is hard to believe you say he's underrated. But I do feel that way. I think overrated for me is Sam Howell from North Carolina.
Gotcha.
He came in with all these credentials, and he's a good athlete. And occasionally, boy, he makes a really nice throw. Okay, has he done really anything like a year ago that you can say, man, that teams are talking about him as a possible first-round pick? Come on, I don't see it. I really don't. I like Desmond Ridder a hell of a lot more than I like Sam Howell. I really do, and I think Sam's one of these boom or bust type guys. But he came in with a ton of credentials. And, he flashed, but, man, look what the talent that was around him 2 years ago. 3 of those receivers in the NFL and 2 backs in the NFL. So, I think he would be, for me, a very overrated player.
Appreciate it.
All right, Mike, we went way over, but this was fantastic stuff. Real quick, tell people where to get the draft book because I know it'll be dropping soon.
Well, here's the bad news.
Oh.
After 36 years, I ain't doing it anymore.
What? No. Come on, man.
I made that decision last spring. I had some opportunities to do other things, and I knew, just deadlines, printers, having to mail out and everything else. I made the decision that I wasn't going to do it anymore in that form. I will put out a lot of that information on WWL.com. We'll have it out starting next week. But, man, the draft book, I loved it, but it didn't love me at times.
Well, we love you, man. You are the best, and we'll be looking forward to hearing you on Titans Radio cover the draft like nobody else. Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it,
Thanks
Mike.
a lot, guys. Y'all take care.
Yes, sir. The best at Mike Detillier. We will be right back. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody's questions. Right back after this, Blaine and Mickey. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. We could have Mike Detillier. By the way, a bunch of you guys sent names. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them. We have time limits we're supposed to go for our segments, and we went way over on our time limit just because we could listen to that guy talk all day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
And somebody,
really good.
TK asked about Traylon Burke. I think he means Traylon Burks, obviously. He said, I think he's almost identical to A.J. Brown. I did see a comp for him that was A.J. Brown in one of the scouting reports. And if we Mike starts to do stuff for Titans radio, and then he only does that for the radio station. So this may be the last time we're able to get him before the draft. But do you think he is a comp? I mean, do you see oh, yeah, I could see how the comp for Traylon Burks would be A.J. Brown?
Well, I think he's taller, but I think everybody's bringing with his physicality and his thickness and, and his run after catch ability. So, yeah, they're somewhat comparable. But he's a 6'3" guy.
Yeah.
So he's a little bit taller, bigger frame. So, yeah, I would say their styles of the way that they play are going to be somewhat similar with the physicality, run after catch by breaking tackles and everything else. Yeah, I think it's very much so will be similar. So it'll be interesting. I think that's why I think he's going to be gone by 26, but he may be there. It just depends on how the draft goes. They've been saying it's more of a lineman deal, whether it's O-line or D-lineman. So that may push some of the receivers back depending on what tier you are. Is he in the first 5 bunch, and then he'll probably get a chance to be in the first round and be available for the Titans. So we shall see, but I think that'll be a no-brainer, for the Titans. I just think he's going to be gone. It's a lot of hype when you see him visiting all these teams and everything else. That means he's on the radar for a lot of teams early, in my opinion, like top 15 or something, depending on how many receivers go early. I mean, if, 2 or 3 of them go early, and then he's the 4th guy rated, he's going to be gone.
For everybody who's like, oh, I hate this quarterback class, and they're the worst, and people are tweeting about this and that. Well, here's the thing. If you want Traylon Burks, then you need to cheer for every quarterback in the world to get drafted in the first round ahead of him to push him back to the Titans.
Yeah. What did Detillier say about the quarterbacks? He thought they were still going to go 2 or 3. He said 2 or 3 of them going to go first round?
Well, that's the first question you ask him. We may have to get Lucas to dig up the sound on that. He did say, you ask him who's overrated in the draft and who's underrated, and he said the overrated guy's Sam Howell.
Right.
And he said Desmond Ritter played circles around that guy.
Mm-hmm. Remember Howell had, coming into the last season was the leading Heisman candidate. Really.
I think people would have thought he was kind of the guy.
Yeah. He lost some NFL receivers and running backs, so had 2 running backs actually drafted. So.
Well, we got him a running back from Tennessee, though, had a pretty good year.
Yeah, Ty Chandler.
Oh, Ty Chandler. Hey, man, I always liked that dude.
I do.
I still like that dude. I'm real interested to see where he lands this year.
Oh, I think he's going to be in the league, so for sure. I mean, I think he actually proved a little bit more of what he can do in the league, but he became more of a catcher.
Yep.
Besides just, with his speed and hitting the hole and everything else. He was a 1,000-yard rusher, right? Yeah. So, yeah, man, he's done it in 2 different leagues. That's pretty hard to do, and he was the guy.
I think he could play special teams for you, too, could return from the jump. He's one of those dudes we were fortunate to get to see him play around here as a high school kid, and you're like, okay, that's what that's supposed to look like, is that dude.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in that lower tier, middle roundish, 4th, 5th. It just depends on how the running back goes. It's so hard at running back. So many running backs, and then they devalued him. So that's what I wanted to see him actually show he can catch the ball more. They really didn't do a lot of that with him in Tennessee. He just ran the football, which he was a real good runner.
All right, we got
between the tackles as well, breakaway speed.
Yep, he's got it. We got to break away from here with our speed. Hour number 2 of the show coming up, including Jordan Dajani to talk NFL, and of course, wide receiver talk coming up next year on Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
It is 2:05. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Stephon Diggs gets paid. The Buffalo Bills wide receiver agreed to a 4-year, $104 million extension, according to Adam Schefter, $70 million of it in guaranteed money as the wide receiver market in the NFL continues to move. Tennessee freshman point guard Kennedy Chandler announced on Tuesday he will enter the NBA draft after one season of college basketball. Chandler will hire an agent, which does not enable him, of course, to come back for another year of college hoops. Chandler led the Vols in scoring last season with nearly 14 points per game, nearly 5 assists per game, and helped Tennessee to an SEC tournament title before a second-round exit in the NCAA tournament. Eddie George and Tennessee State are headed to South Bend to play Notre Dame in the 2023 season. It'll be the first game ever scheduled by the Irish against an HBCU in football. The Nashville Sound started the 2022 season with a walk-off winner on opening day yesterday, going again tonight against the Durham Bulls. First pitch at 6:35. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Lucas Panzica talking about this TSU trip to Notre Dame. This happened right at the end of our show yesterday, and at the same time, Kennedy Chandler was turning pro, so we didn't get to mention it. And Blaine was like, I wonder if they're going to take the band. That should be in the press release, like, and we're taking the band.
That'd be awesome.
It's a cute, cool experience, but, the band is just as important as the football team now.
Those people in South Bend, they deserve to see the sophisticated ladies. Ooh. They deserve to see that band. Hey, man, that's a whole different realm of what those young people can do. And I've been to a Notre Dame. I was fortunate. I got to go to a Notre Dame game 100 years ago as part of – I was training. I was working when I sold pharmaceuticals, which if you ever need to know anything about medicine from the mid-'90s, I remember all of it. So if you see me out, stop and ask me. I can answer you anything about anything from
I think a lot of that has changed.
Oh, it's 100% changed. It's 100% changed now. I can't impress the doctor anymore. When I go to the doctor and start talking about things, the doctor's like, oh, that was like 6 generations of that medicine ago, but thanks for the update. But you got to bring the band. I was telling Blaine, when I was working at Arkansas State, we played Mississippi Valley State.
Oh.
And so they're like, it's easy trip. We'll bring our band.
Jerry Rice was there too?
So we saw none of the go. Their band started getting off the bus, and they got off the bus for like 10 minutes. There were so many of them. We essentially, all of our end zone seats at the time, we have stadiums different now, they were in one end zone of our stadium. And if you ever go to a game and you're listening to Sports Talk Radio, you've been to games, there are people with headsets on. And so they're like, cue home band. And so the band will play like the fight song in a timeout. And then they'll say, cue announcer. And so the announcer will be like, we'd like to bring out our legend of the game, Blaine Bishop. And they'll like, go Blaine Bishop. And so whoever's got you on the field, they got a headset on, they'll take you out. And so everything is choreographed. It's all in a script. Mm-hmm. They don't stick to the script. Their band just plays whenever they want to. So you're like, go home band. They'll just start playing, and they're the visitor band. Or you're trying to, you've got like the board of trustees out on the field. They just play through everything. They just play when they want to play. So after the game, you're talking to like their guy on the headset. And he's like, sorry, man, you get us, you get all of us. We play when we want to play. Boy, and it was worth every second. They killed it.
Yeah, they say you can't time dancing, man. It's got its own little rhythm.
Dude, they are. Boy.
That's a pretty good gift for Eddie George and the crew over there, man. That's pretty awesome.
Well, you tell a kid, hey, man, you're going to play where the legends have played. You get a chance to go toe-to-toe with this is everybody. And if you're young, Notre Dame doesn't hold the same mystique to you. But like when you tell your parents, yeah, we're going to play Notre Dame, your parents are going to be like, oh, my gosh. Tell your grandparents, oh, my gosh. Yeah, college football is better. I know a bunch of you don't like Notre Dame. College football is way better when Notre Dame is good. There's a handful of programs that matter. To me, they're one of those programs. It matters when they're good because people don't like them. So, and people love them.
Well, they used to be a dominant program, and now they're not so much there. They're right on the cusp of that. And people think they're still there, and they get some advantages because of their history. Just like all the other schools, though, in my opinion. I was a big Notre Dame fan growing up. I wanted to go there. They said, nope, you about as good as Lucas, so no can do.
I thought Lucas got a bunch of letters from Notre Dame. I figured he'd be headed there for a soccer career.
I think as a Catholic,
that's what
you
they
just
told me.
automatically get letters from Notre Dame.
You could have been a package
That's what
deal.
they told me. Yeah, you could
Were
play
you not Catholic enough?
Yeah, but
or they
just-
think you're fast enough?
No, they just said you could play soccer, but not football here. Almost went to tears.
This wide receiver market, I don't see any names from Notre Dame, but Stephon Diggs is the latest wide receiver to get paid. He got 4 years, $104 million. That's his extension. He got an extension, $70 million guaranteed. So that joins Devontae Adams, who got 5 years, $141.25 million, 65 guaranteed, and Tyreek Hill, who got 4 years, $120.75 guaranteed. So who is up next? Because we've been saying this has kind of been a thing. Well, if Jordan Dajani is going to join us next, we can certainly get into this with him. But we keep saying, well, if you're A.J. Brown's agent, you're looking at all these numbers. You brought up a great point, and this is something we're going to have to keep talking about. Stephon Diggs has been doing this longer in the league and putting up big numbers longer than A.J. He has.
He's available. Yeah, he's doesn't miss games.
And Devontae Adams is certainly one of the premier receivers in the league. And then as you've talked about Tyreek Hill, you can't even comp him. You can't even player comp him because there's nobody who moves sideways, front and back, and straight line speed like that guy. So the next guys in AJ's class, Debo, DK, and AJ, are all the same second-round picks from the same year in the draft. They all can be extended. Spot Track gave evaluations, our buddy Mike Detillier, for the guys who are going to be next to get contracts. Cooper Kupp, 4 years, $113. That's $28.25 million. Cooper Kupp just had the Triple Crown last year. He had one of the greatest receiver years in history.
Mm-hmm.
So they got him at $28.25. Terry McLaurin, 4 years, $97.7, $24.425 million. They got DK Metcalf, 4 years, $97.1, which is $24.275. They got A.J. Brown at 4 years, $91 million. They have him $1 million ahead of Debo, 4 years, $90 million. So basically, A.J. Brown at 4 years, $22.75 per. Debo, 4 years, $22.5. I do think Debo is probably going to top that number. That's interesting. But that's just where Spot Track has got him. And I even saw people tweeting back and forth with Mike Detillier of Spot Track, and he said, look, the Debo contract is going to be fascinating to watch because of what he does on the ground. You know, I told you, I went back and looked. Debo averages 3 carries per game. To go along with what he does as a receiver, he averages 3. He had 59 carries last year, which was like 2.9 carries per game.
But some of them, when he was at running back, he wasn't just doing
like running back.
Yeah, he was, because they had a running back injuries.
Yep.
I actually go the opposite of that, and they're saying they're devaluing him for that, I think, I think that gives him more value.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not trying to make you a full-time running back, but in a crunch, we can put you at running back if we let 2 or 3 guys go down, and I can rotate some guys in there at wide receiver. So I think that gives him more of an edge. And to me, I would think he is more valuable than A.J. Brown. And I think they're saying the opposite.
At least right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 years, 22.75. You good with that today, GM Bishop? I know you've had your GM hat on a lot lately.
For A.J. Brown or Debo?
Yeah, A.J. Brown, 4 years, 91. That'd be 22.75 per. I could slide it across the table right now to GM Blaine Bishop, and he could go, yep, I'm going to put my sign right there, right over AJ.
First of all, I'm going to go check with Amy, and then I'm going to go down the list.
That sweet angel's going to have the checkbook out. You know that. She always does.
I would still try to squeeze him a little bit. I'm tough as a negotiator.
Well, I'll say this.
And it goes back to, because you can leverage, okay, that's what it's saying. So then you start trying to, it's just no different than what they do to all the guys at the combine now and at the draft. They're finding things that's wrong with them, right?
Right.
And so I'm going to go, well, you're not consistently available. That's number one. So, okay, when you do play, you're one of the best or one of, the top 5, 10, wherever you want to put them. So that'd be a whole nother conversation. Where do I think you should be at if I'm talking to his agent? Where is he at in the top 10? Do you believe he's in the top 5? Because I would probably try to prove that he's not.
Yeah.
This is just how the negotiations go. I mean, this is what they're trying to prove. So then you can then devalue his actual contract size. And so then that would put me, he's somewhere in between 6 and 10. That's kind of where I view him at. And I go, and missing games and available. So where does that put you on the pay scale? So you can't get 22 and a half. That's at the top if you are available. So I go, I'm probably going to be around the 20 million range. And I'm sure his agent on the other end of that is not going to have that. Because I think he's in the group. When you look at all the guys, the Godwins, the Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, who's I think it should be in the elite group, and he should get an extension as well. I think he's in that group. Until you stay available and then you start dominating games week in and week out, can I give you that kind of contract when you're talking about 22 or more?
Yeah. $20.7 million would make him the 5th highest paid receiver. If he got 20.7, he would be number 5 in the league. 20.7.
And see, and that's kind of right where I think he's at. That's just me. But I know the money says otherwise. It says 22 and a half. But I think that's where he's at.
21?
I probably would meet him happy man with 21. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because if there's also a penalty is we sign you early than later. But in his mind, he go, well, if I wait later, it's going to get higher.
100%. Yeah, because DK's going to get his, and the Debo's going to get his, and then what's Cooper Kupp going to do, and McLaurin? Yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah, but in negotiations, this is how it goes. This is business. And the agent is trying to do the best job for his client. Yeah. It's nothing personal about any of this negotiation. There's no passion, no connection. Yeah. You love the player, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way for whatever reason. So you can just keep it moving, and you hope it works out as a GM. That's why you have to take all the calls and just see what's out there. Then you kind of sit back and say, well, we're kind of stuck at a pass here where we can't get beyond. If they don't want to go to 21 and they're stuck at we're not going lower than 22 and a half, then maybe we say, okay, bring me something else to the table, maybe $1.5 million in incentives. Right. That way, if he is available, he will reach his number. Ooh. See, so you just start going down these roads, and I think that's how I would get to him. I would probably be around the 21 million, and with incentives, and if he's available, he will be right where he wants to be as far as the dough, bag.
Let's get the bag next with Jordan Dajani of CBS Sports. What does he think AJ is worth? We'll hit that and a whole bunch more coming up next on Blaine Mickey. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. We got Jordan Dajani on with us right now.
But the question we want to ask, and this is where we're having serious talks here, Lucas, and maybe you can help us. You're a youngster because you're probably thinking more on the line of how most people are thinking. Is A.J. Brown a top 5 player at receiver, or is he a top 10 player? And I think he's in the top 10, more like 8, 9-ish, because you start naming some guys, Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Jefferson. I mean, I'm just rambling guys off the top of my head now. I haven't even. He's already past 5.
Yeah, it's too easy to name 5 receivers that would come before A.J. Brown. You go with 10, it gets a little bit harder once you reach that 8, 9 mark.
Right. So I would say he's
DeAndre
in that
Hopkins,
kind of group.
yeah.
And so, right. Then we got to even talk about Deebo Samuels, DJ Metcalf, Keenan Allen, who's older, but he's not the same. But you start going down the list, you go, I don't know if he's even right there at the 10. See? And I know I'm not, trying to not give him his credit because he's a great receiver. But when you start looking at the whole body of work and you go saying, well, where does he rank with his class? Where is he with Deebo Samuels, DJ Metcalf, and him? And it was somebody else, wasn't it?
The big 3 all came from the second round.
Right,
it was Debo, DK, and AJ.
Right.
Because N'Keal Harry and Hollywood Brown went in the first round.
Where do you rank him in those 3 guys? With him as 3. Where is he?
I have their stats. Let's bring.
Well, we can look at the stats. I mean, stats can help you because it's all like they're different, but stats can tell you they all. You can say they have different offenses a little bit. Deebo Samuel, I think, has an advantage because they really tried to make sure they got him the ball.
Let's bring in Jordan Dajani as part of this discussion. I might say second behind Deebo. Because
I think that's where
I would go 2 behind Deebo. Jordan Dajani joins us now. Jordan, how in the world are you? And we'll just start out with that question.
Hey, what's up, my friends? Glad to be back on the show. Yeah, that's a good question. In terms of those 3 wide receivers, I think I need to lead towards Deebo Samuel because of the versatility he brings to the position. I mean, he's been electric over the past couple of seasons. There's no doubt about it. But when it comes to that number 2, number 3 spot, the 2 Ole Miss guys, I really think it's a toss-up. I think this will be an interesting conversation to have a couple of years down the line. But I think it's really a toss-up between these 2 big targets that have had high level of production over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, DK Metcalf, the other thing about him, too, he's played 16 games and 16 games and 17 games. He's is one of his best ability, and he's got more receptions, more yards, and more touchdowns than A.J.
Yeah, I think he had 12 touchdowns or something.
He's got 29 in his career. A.J. has 24 in his career.
So, okay, let's take it back a little bit here, Jordan. Where would you rank, regardless of age, of A.J. Brown right now as an NFL wide receiver? Is he in the top 10?
I don't know if you can make an argument for it. I think you could. I think he's borderline. I have a list up right in front of me. I mean, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, and DeAndre Hopkins. That's 11 right there. And I think you could make an argument that you would rather have any of those 11 guys over A.J. Brown. That being said, A.J. Brown is still young. He's up, of course, for a contract that we've been talking about, and he's somebody who could have his best football ahead of him. But in terms of him as in that top 10 range, you could make an argument for it, but I think he's just outside the top 10. That being said, I hope he's a Titan for life.
Oh, no doubt about it. I know everybody's saying I'm a cheapskate. No, I'm just negotiating because really AJ has a lot of leverage here. His agent is trying to force a trade and putting out all these different rumors, whether it's through the Jets radio person, whoever it may be, Samini, and everything else. I'm just interested because John Robinson has to keep coming out saying we're no part of trying to trade A.J. Brown. So where do you think all of this is coming from?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because we talked about this last week, but I think there's been some new developments, of course. I mean, the longer it goes on, of course, we have a guy like Stephon Diggs getting paid now, moving up into that top 5 of AAV. and you have your agent whispering in your ear, being a good agent as he should, maybe A.J. Brown could be getting a little bit restless when it comes to just where the talks are currently behind closed doors. And he put up kind of an interesting Instagram story, that might have something to do with that, might not, I'm not sure. But there's one thing I do want to talk about, and that's, when we talked about last week, we talked about maybe there's a trend in the NFL of some of these star wide receivers up for new contracts getting dealt instead. And, I thought that was a very interesting point by you. But I also wanted to bring this up, and I wrote about this on CBSSports.com earlier this week. The reason Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill were traded from their respective teams was because they reached a point where negotiations were not going well between the two sides, and it kind of came to fruition that, hey, a change of scenery is probably exactly what's going to happen here. The Titans and A.J. Brown, in my mind, can't be at that point just yet. And that's why I don't think A.J. Brown is going to be traded from Tennessee. Now, this could be an interesting discussion a few weeks, whatever it may be, down the line in terms of where these negotiations are behind closed doors. But it has to reach that point first before we even talk about A.J. Brown getting dealt away. This was a report coming from the New York Jets saying that they wanted A.J. Brown. I'm sure a lot of teams would like A.J. Brown. The Jets would like Deebo Samuel too, but it's not going to happen. So it's something to keep an eye on, but I don't think that A.J. Brown's on the trade block by any means.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I guess we're on with Jordan Dajani, NFL writer for CBS Sports. I guess we had the big trade with the Eagles and the Saints. How do you view that trade and what was, transferred over to the Saints? What's the upside for either side? How do you view it?
Yeah, it was a very interesting trade in my opinion. I think that the main takeaway is that the Saints wanted multiple first-round picks in this class, while the Eagles, on the other hand, were fine giving one away for a future first and a future second, by the way, and still having multiple first-round picks in this year's draft, which is a good thing. And they also ensured, of course, that they have multiple first-round picks the next year as well. So when you state it that way, I think the Eagles won the trade. But at the same time, the Saints clearly want multiple first-round picks in this year's draft, and they were able to strike a deal, which is good for them. Now, in terms of where this leaves these two teams in terms of their draft game plans, I think a lot of people have been talking about the quarterbacks for each team. Jalen Hurts is still a guy the Eagles like and trust. They at least want to give him this year. I don't see them drafting a quarterback in the first round. But they may have shown some foresight in terms of if they need to draft a quarterback in the first round next year, they now have kind of the firepower to negotiate a trade or at least be positioned in the right way to draft a new quarterback. As for the Saints, I've seen a lot of people thinking that they're going quarterback first round. In my opinion, I'm not there just yet. They just signed Jameis Winston to a multi-year deal. Yeah. They have a couple of big weaknesses that I think they could satisfy in that first round in left tackle and wide receiver. I think if I was doing a mock draft right now, that's probably what I'd have the Saints doing. They're going to find good value for a left tackle where they're currently slated. And, of course, we know wide receivers are going to be picked in the first round as well.
Well, with Jordan Dajani, NFL writer for CBS Sports.
Jordan, it's funny you kind of summed it up the way you did. The Titans are a team who have a quarterback under contract in Ryan Tannehill. They also need a tackle, just a right tackle. They also need some more help at wide receiver. Just curious where you are leaning right now with what you think the Titans, A, will do, and B, should do with pick 26 if things continue the way they are, and that's the pick they hold on to.
Yeah, as we talked about, I think when you're sitting where you are right now at 26, it really is about how the draft board falls to you. If there's an offensive guard or hybrid tackle that I'm really intrigued by that falls to that spot, then I'm going to be leaning towards Tennessee should choose him. Yeah. If there's a wide receiver such as Treylon Burks, who is probably my draft crush, if he's available there, I'd be kind of tapping my toes hoping that Tennessee made a move on him. So it really is about how the draft board falls. I've seen some mocks, taking quarterbacks as well. And, that's something we've talked about on your show. I saw Matt Corral going to one of those in one of those mock drafts going to the Titans at 26, which is somewhat intriguing. But, when it really comes down to it, I think that using that first-round pick would be beneficial to use it on an offensive lineman, whether that be guard or tackle or a wide receiver.
Yeah, last year I threatened to throw a brick at my TV if they took another offensive lineman in the first round. They didn't, so it saved the television at my house. I'm saying no such thing this year because I think if like Zion Johnson is there or Kenyon Green, I think the trigger is going to get pulled.
Yep, I would 100% agree with that. Those are definitely two prospects you have to keep in mind as we look towards these mock drafts and just also some of these, draft rumors that we're going to be getting plenty of over the next few weeks.
Gosh, I love every minute of it, too. I absolutely just eat it up. Jordan Dajani, our guest from CBS Sports here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, let's talk about some still free agents that are out there, and should they sign before or after the draft? And that's one, Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. What do you think is going to happen with him? You think he'll sign before or after? I mean, he's only visited like the Saints. I think maybe the Colts were in conversation, but I'm interested to see why he doesn't have a lot of value here. It's just maybe now he's getting towards the end of his career is why he's not getting signed for the amount of money he thinks he deserves. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. It gets really interesting when it comes to this stage of the offseason with some of those prize free agents. Should they sign before or after the draft? And I think there's pros and cons to both situations depending on the player you are and the position you play as well. For Tyrann Mathieu, it doesn't seem like he's in an incredible hurry. He's been taking a couple of visits. You named the Saints. I don't know how serious that journey might have been because he was in town visiting friends and family, according to reports as well. So maybe it was kind of a check-in. New Orleans did lose Marcus Williams in free agency, but you have to remember that they went and satisfied that need with Marcus May from the New York Jets as well. So maybe the Saints are interested in kind of stacking up on safety and free safety, strong safety with Tyrann Mathieu, but I'm not sure that's going to be the right fit. I would keep an eye on the Las Vegas Raiders. They're in the AFC West. That's a Chiefs rival. Maybe Tyrann Mathieu felt just a little bit slighted with how this offseason went. To me, it seems like he's going to be signing after the draft.
Man, well, the Dolphins have added all these players now at the receiver and running back and offensive line. Will they be serious contenders for the AFC, I guess, East?
Oh, I like the Buffalo Bills a lot more, obviously. And, they had a pretty solid offseason. They got Von Miller, a guy who the Rams got last year in hopes that he would lead them to a Super Bowl, and that's exactly what he did. So Buffalo is trying to do the exact same thing there. I think the Buffalo Bills will probably have to be my number one team in that division, one of the best teams in the AFC, no doubt. But the Miami Dolphins, I think I'm confident right now maybe putting at number 2 ahead of the New England Patriots. I think that I feel like we've talked a lot about this on your show with Mike McDaniel, the new head coach there. He's one of the more intriguing new lead men that the NFL world is going to have eyes on. And he was kind of innovative with some of the schemes and how he used Deebo Samuel and the run game just with the San Francisco 49ers. And now all of a sudden he's got a lot of talent to utilize. So go back and look at what the Dolphins did in free agency all the way to the offensive line. This is going to be a team to watch in 2022. But in terms of them usurping the Bills as the best team in the AFC East, I'm not ready to go that far just yet.
Where do you have the Titans right now if you were ranking based off of the moves just on paper right now? Are they in the top 5 in the AFC?
Yeah, I would say so. I'd have to pull up the AFC teams right now in front of me, but I do think the Tennessee Titans deserve some respect just from what they were able to do last year in terms of being the number 1 seed in the AFC despite a record-setting amount of injuries, not having Derrick Henry. They got to be up there. But, if I had a power rank, I'm going to have the Bills there. I'll probably have the Bengals up there somewhere as well. The AFC West is where it gets really tricky because I legitimately do not know the best team in that division. I don't think it's the Chiefs. I think it could be the Broncos or the Chargers. So, yeah, I think you could make an argument for the Tennessee Titans to be in that top 5, although I'm not sure I'll have them as one of the top 2.
What coach is going into the draft now on the hottest of hot seat? They got to win this year. They're probably going to get fired.
I know I'm in Tennessee, but I can feel the heat coming from Carolina right now when it comes to Matt Rule. He's somebody who a lot of people in the league view as a dead man walking. I don't want to go that far just yet. I think it's very possible he could do something in the draft that could maybe save his job. But, there was a lot of talk about how much hold did he really have in the locker room last season. Things obviously were not going well in Carolina, and a big part of that is because of, their struggle to fill the quarterback position, the starting quarterback that they have not had for so many years. And that, in large part, has been due to Matt Rule. He's been kind of the guy who's been pulling strings behind closed doors, and trading for these borderline starters, veteran guys, has not worked in their favor. So I think undoubtedly it's Matt Rule.
We're with Jordan Dajani, NFL writer for CBS Sports.
Jordan, on the way out the door, I know Colin Kaepernick threw at the Michigan scrimmage and it went out there and I guess threw it at halftime. Certainly has a relationship with Jim Harbaugh from their time in San Francisco together. Taking out all the political stuff because that's just not what we do here. from a football standpoint, is he going to get another shot somewhere, or was that maybe the last gasp there?
If you asked me a year ago, I'd say no way. But with how crazy this offseason has been, I just have my, door open to anything coming to fruition. It's been crazy. But, I'll say this. I mean, I wrote an article actually kind of breaking down that workout. He looked pretty solid. He looked good on some of these timing routes. He had plenty of power on his arm as well. But obviously it's going to take a big momentous step for an NFL team to actually reach out and sign him. And he's open, according to Josina Anderson, who works with us over at CBS, he's open to being a backup in the NFL. But where the problem kind of lies is, do you want your backup quarterback to be attracting that amount of NFL, global media attention?
Yeah.
That's something that's not attractive to any of the 32 NFL franchises. So, and the other thing to go along with that is Pete Carroll's been talked about with Colin Kaepernick, because he's looking for his new starting quarterback, and he's somebody who's had his players work out with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick's had direct contact with Pete Carroll this offseason. But when you break down some of the comments that he's talked about with the media, he doesn't sound too ambitious, with him being the one team that gives him the second shot. So I'm leaning towards no, but with how wild this offseason has been, nothing would shock me.
Jordan, nothing ever shocks us when you come on, man. Always great information, and people need to follow you and read all your stuff at CBS Sports. You are on Twitter at Jordan Dajani, and we look forward to hearing from you next week, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
you.
Always a great visit with our buddy Jordan. All right, Lucas says he's got tickets to give away. So Jordan has hung up. Phone lines are open for you. Preds giveaway Smashville. The Predators' regular season's coming to a close. 104.5 The Zone is your chance to win tickets to cheer on the Preds as they make their postseason push, and they are pushing. The Window Nation ticket window is now open, so be caller number 5 for your chance to win tickets to your Nashville Predators take on the San Jose Sharks on April 12th. Here's your number, 615-737-1045. Tickets to the remaining Nashville Predators home games are available. For more info, go to NashvillePredators.com/tickets. Avancy says a great question in the Zone TV chat about AJ. We'll hit that next. Also, Danny in the Borough, hold. We will get to your call next. It's Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Mickey 1045 The Zone. We'll get to this question from Avances on Twitter here or the Zone TV chat in just a second. But Danny in the Borough has been kind enough to hold through a segment and a break. Danny, thanks for calling the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. How in the world are you doing?
Doing great. Hey guys, I really appreciate you letting me take a couple minutes of your time.
Yes, sir.
So I've been really contemplating this AJ Brown thing for a couple of days now, like everyone else in Tennessee has. And I'm a well-known Bengals fan, but I do have a soft spot for AJ Brown. I think that he's a football man's football man, in my opinion, and I really appreciate what he brings to the game. But here's my problem with the way that the NFL is currently analyzing receivers in the market. And to answer your question, Blaine, specifically, no, I wouldn't put A.J. Brown in the top 5 or the top 10. I'm right in line with what Mr. Dajani said, and I think that he's right around 12 or 13 in the league overall. But we're at a spot now where just because of the way that the timing is broken out and what other receivers with better attributes, better statistics, and better skills than A.J. Brown have been able to achieve in the marketplace is now dictating what A.J. Brown is set to make in the marketplace. And I've got a big problem with that, and I can see why the Titans would definitely want to balk at the fact that A.J. Brown is walking around and positioning himself to become the most well-compensated wide receiver in football. It just doesn't make any sense to me. When you look at his statistics over the last couple seasons, he's available for about 80% of the games, so he's missing between 20 and 25%. So he's only available for roughly two-thirds of the games. And of those, about half the time, he's subpar in the statistics category. So you've only got an elite production from the guy in about a third of the games throughout the season because he's only available for 70% or so. And of those, he doesn't perform that well half the time. So the fact that we're thinking that this guy, just because of what the market is dictating, is going to be able to earn the type of money that they're talking about giving to him is just absurd to me. And I can't, in any world, makes that as a business decision makes sense to me when there's as much young talent in the NFL as there is at the receiver position. And the fact that we shouldn't, as a Titans organization, be looking to tie up that much capital in our wide receiver if Vrabel's entire mantra is to be run-first team. It doesn't make sense to the team structure, doesn't make sense for the team finances, and it doesn't make sense for the roster to spend that much cash on a receiver who's only going to produce at that level about 30 to 35% of the time.
Because of the way they run their offense. Well said. I mean,
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, I think that's kind of down the road, they're calling me cheapskate, but that's how business is done. I mean, just think about when you're trying to go back and negotiate your contract at your job. So you have to bring all these things to the table about what you're doing to help make the company better. And if it's wavering or you've missed half your job or anything else, the same parts of negotiation goes into play. So I love how he analyzed that. That was high level, observation of A.J. Brown. And sometimes it's the offense that you're in too. Like if this was a passing offense, they wouldn't even give that money to the King.
Right. Well, that's what Avances had asked about. If he got the targets, talking about A.J., those guys got, he'd be up there with Kupp and Jefferson and Adams. That's an argument that people keep trying to make, like, oh, if he played in one of these other offenses. But he doesn't.
But he doesn't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and that they're going to use that against him. It's you can't say that he's in a better, throwing offense. Well, guess what? Here's what AJ should be doing if he really wants the big dough. He should be not worried about a new contract. Play out this year, and hopefully they don't tag him. That's what I would negotiate in there. And that way he can go to an offense that throws the ball around the yard, and they will give him that kind of dough. Because next year he's going to be asking for 25 or more. Yeah, and guess what? He probably won't miss any games. He's going to be revved up and ready to go. And that's how you negotiate as a player. And that's all you got.
Yeah.
You say, hey, man, if I want to put up big numbers and I think I can, who says he can't? Then, yeah, guess what? You need to play out this contract and then keep it moving. Go get the dough. Go get the bag.
It is interesting.
And they do have the franchise tag. They can't tag you.
They do. And that's what I was going to say. It's interesting because you brought that up.
And they're going to use it against that in negotiation too.
And he could always say, okay, then I'm a holdout.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And guess what? They're going to draft a receiver. Yeah. Because the receiver position, I've said it the last 2 weeks, is becoming a position where every year, because of the 7-on-7 starting from high, the guys are coming in much more prepared to play the position.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a handful of guys you think you can plug in and play right away. Will they be as good as A.J. Brown? Maybe not. But down the road in a couple of years, they will be. At least they want to believe that. So that's kind of, I think that's what's happening with all, unless you're that superstar elite guys, which the guys who got the money, yeah. So do you want to give that kind of money and resources in one player that doesn't have the ball all the time in your offense where you're a run-oriented offense?
I looked. He was 34th in targets last year. I looked in the break.
Compared to everybody else?
Yep, he was 34th. He got over 100, but he was like 107 or whatever. That made him 34th. He wasn't in the top 30 in targets. Now, granted, he missed 4 games. That would have beefed him up there some. But that's where he landed. He landed, somebody will double check. I did believe it was 34.
Let's say he's more around 20 maybe. I don't know.
Well, I think I'm going to get this before we go because I said it.
It's a tough call, really. And, as a general manager, they're not like the fans. They don't get emotionally attached.
34th.
They try to make, a business decision. What's good for the team. And Vrabel says it all the time.
Yeah. And they still got to pay Big Jeff $25 million a year because that's going to happen when it happens. And that keeps going. That may go up.
And I would put him on the elite category. It's already clear that he is an elite player. He's one of the best.
3HL, they're elite players. They're up next, 3 to 6. Get you the rest of the way home. We got to go, my friend.
In the meantime, in between time, peace.